Right. Apologies for absence.
We have a few apologies from Councillor Manjit Capture.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Apologies from Councillor Castor, and Councillor Dillon is the substitute. Yes, I've worked that out for myself. I know. We've got the wrong presentation on as well, because we're not redoing the majors work. Because that would take us a little longer than this would. So, for those who've just done majors. Huh? Declarations of interest. Councillor Morgan, are you about to throw me one?
I'm afraid so, Mr. Chairman. Item 8, St Helens School. I've got a pecuniary interest and will be leaving the meeting. My daughter is a...
Somebody else wishes to go home early. Right, he's definitely leaving because he wants to go home. There are no minutes of previous meetings. The only change to the published agenda is that item 6, 56 Pembroke Road, was withdrawn from the agenda by the Head of Planning this morning. So that will come back to us at a future date. We're all in part 1. Right. We have one petition item and one non-petition item. Is anyone here to speak on the petition item? They're not here. Mr. Small must be the applicant, I'm taking it. Thank you. Okay. Okay, we have a petition, so the petitioner is entitled to address us, although they're not here. They'll need to be quick. You as the applicant do have a right to address us, even though the petitioner isn't here because the petition has been presented. So whether you exercise that right or not, I'll leave to you. But in a moment, we hear the officers first, and then you get your time. In that case, I'm going to kick it off, please. I'll cut the preliminaries, and we'll get into item 7, because it will take longer to do the preliminaries than it will.
Thank you, Chair. Item 7, 3 Pikes End, Eastcote. This is an application for a first floor side extension, a single-storey front infill extension, and porch to front involving alterations to elevations. And this is a site on the bend in Pike End Road. That's a constraints map. You can see it's not that far from Greenbelt, and there are some listed buildings not that far from the site, but probably not close enough for it to affect their setting. And it's an aerial photo. And again, this site plan and a close-up of the site plan, so in the house, funny shapes, sort of modernish style of development. That's the existing floor plans, ground and first. These are the existing elevations. You can see it's a sort of modern-looking single-storey structure with a, in part, first floor sloping roof, mono-pitch sloping roof, first floor over part of the site footprint. These are the proposed elevations, floor plans. If I quickly go back, you can see that they're infilling. Can I use my my red highlighter? Maybe I can find where it's gone. There it is. They're infilling this area here at ground floor, and they're extending to the side here on the first floor plan. That first floor extension. If I go across, that's the elevation, proposed elevation. So this is the new bit at first floor in there. And obviously that's the side. It's obviously built along the side of the existing first floor projection. You don't really see it here, but the infill, the front infill, is in here. Right. I go across now. There is an existing approval for this site. So infilling at ground floor, as with the proposed scheme, and for a smaller and slightly different design, or significantly different designed first floor element. So if you hold that in your mind, I'll just quickly flick to the floor plan. And there you can see this proposal filled in less of the ground floor, and that's the first floor element of what was approved. This application is actually recommended for refusal. The reasons being the proposed single-storey front infill, by reason of its scale and bulk and design, would fail to harmonise with the architectural composition of the visual dwelling. So the existing approval doesn't infill. And if I go back to the floor plan, if I've explained this right, you will see that's the element of the scheme that we're particularly concerned with. It's all, I should stress it's in the conservation area, East Cote Village Conservation Area. Thank you, Chair.
Any photographs?
Oh, sorry, photographs, yeah. It is one of a run of similar dwellings. I might go back to the aerial photo actually, because obviously the photos just focus on the proposal, but it is part of a sequence. I don't know the aerial, so you can see that it is an estate sort of, or that bend in the road has similar designed properties. So it was built as a unified sort of estate, mini estate. So that's the front. So you can see the infill. The infill would be infilling that area there. This rear elevation. That's a view from inside the rear garden towards the existing first floor elements. And that's a close up as part of the garden. Is there any particular view you want me to leave it on?
No, just leave that there. We'll do it. Okay. I think it is, yeah. I must guess it was. Hang on a moment before we come in with anything. Are you the petitioner on this one?
Yes, I am. I'm representing the residences, and there's a few other people coming now as well. I'm afraid we've got lots of people in the
Because we are, if you're going to present a petition, we are actually at that point, at this point in process. 2 minutes later and we would have been gone. So do you want to? I'll explain the process now, and then we'll do it. You have 5 minutes to address us. You get 4 minutes on green, 1 minute on amber, 1 minute on red. When you are finished, members may ask you some questions or they may not. That's entirely up to them. And then the applicant also has a right to address committee for the same length of time. Okay?
Good evening.
Could you press the red button so we can hear you? And then it's also on the television record. Right, thank you.
Good evening. Thank you very much for your time this evening. I just wanted to start with, I've made a few very quick points. One, this is an award-winning design by the couple Weir and Dorr. It's a conservation area. The houses were purposely built as 5 bedrooms. Number 3 is already extended. It has 6 bedrooms. You've been misled into thinking it's only 3 in the planning applications. This was something which shocked the residences. There is a covenant which is agreed by all purchasers of properties, and it stipulates the houses cannot be changed by the facade, and the covenant should supersede this issue. Aesthetically, it is not pleasing. We think it's going to be an eyesore. There's not going to be a uniformity to the street, and we'd really like for this to be taken on board. Once planning was applied for, number 3 blocked their letterbox, and we tried speaking to them as a family, and it was impossible. We could not write letters or even communicate. There is currently an issue with regards to 2 illegal conifers, which are now well over 3 stories high. I am the number at number 4. I've even volunteered to pay for half of these to be removed because the roots are currently causing damage to my living room wall, as well as a neighbour, which is number 2, their wall, and also the sewage underneath. At the moment, it would cause, there's utter privacy, and that is something which the Human Rights Act permits us to have. Once this eyesore goes up, there's going to be lack of privacy. It's going to be a massive intrusion, and I would like to remind the council here tonight that this is our basic human right to have privacy. I understand that light does not come into the Human Rights Act. However, my bedroom is right across from just there above the garage. I've owned this property since 2009, and this whole issue, as well as losing sunlight, has not only affected my physical health, but I am actually being affected mentally as well, and I'm concerned for my own mental health going forward. Not just that, but the levels of stress and anxiety in the whole street has increased. The capacity of the road for the number of cars, already number 3 has around about 8 cars and a large caravan-like unit. It's very difficult to get out of the opposite house, which I believe is number 8. Their drive is often blocked. The rest of the road find it very difficult to get out. As far as health and safety is concerned, I mean, it's nigh on impossible, and it's something that we have an ongoing clash with, sadly, with number 3. If housing permission were to be given, and we as residents, we really don't know how we're going to manage with the extra building work and trucks and vans and so on and so forth. Number 3 was, as far as we knew before the current residents have moved in, a residential house with 6 bedrooms, one the garage converted. However, if you look on the internet, there is up to around about 8 or 10 companies registered at this address. We are worried about the number. I'll tell you why. Because if planning is granted, this will become a 9-bedroom house, which is the minimum you need for a care home. And I believe that the gentleman at number 3 at the moment has care home businesses. And also, obviously, the drop in price of the value of our houses is something that we are all very concerned about. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Do members have any questions? I'll pick up some specifics in a moment. Councillor Jushu?
Oh, well, I don't know if you pick up the specific about the covenants.
Yes, I will. Councillor Graham?
I'm not too clear from what you're saying about the number of bedrooms.
Yes.
The current number of bedrooms, the number of bedrooms that were mentioned in the application you're saying is different.
Yes.
And I think the largest number of bedrooms you mentioned was something like 9, was it? Or something
currently, all these houses were purpose-built as 5-bedroom family homes. Every single one of them, without an extension, has 5 bedrooms.
Really?
Yes. The garage has been converted into a further bedroom at number 3, which makes that a 6-bedroom house. I forgot to mention also, I do beg your pardon, that there is a... Am I allowed to mention anything? It's law.
I'm just doing questions for the minute. We'll look at the plans in terms of number of bedrooms. I think that's the fairest way to determine in accordance with plans. Councillor Morgan?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. You mentioned that your bedroom is facing the extension. Do you actually have any windows on that side of the wall?
Yes, sir, I do. And I use that light. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Is this currently a one-family dwelling, or do you know?
As far as we know, yes. That's what we've been told, but there are registered addresses.
Companies being registered to an address doesn't, I've got to be honest.
The business was run from there in the past, and we have reasons to believe that it still continues.
It's a family home as far as we're concerned, I think. I think that's where we have to stop.
I'm getting a bit frustrated. There's lots being said that is not planning consent.
No, I will cover that in a moment. I'm just trying to draw it to a close. I will cover that in a moment. As you would have guessed, I might. Okay? Thank you very much indeed.
You need to consider the Party Wall Act. I've not given permission for this.
I cannot.
I've not given permission for this, and I've written to him.
Hang on. I will cover some of these matters in a moment, but there are an awful lot there we can't take into account, but I'll direct in a moment. Thank you for your petition. Mr. Small? If you press the button on the middle, the microphone will light up and we'll start the time and you have the 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much for allowing me to speak today. According to the petition, I am the devil incarnate. I'd like to address a few issues, if I may. Blocked letterboxes, I don't know what that's all about. No idea. There are the 2 bedrooms that we use in my house upstairs. Don't use any of the rooms downstairs, and there certainly isn't room for 6 bedrooms. There are other things that I'll come to if I have time. I wanted to know what the objections were before. Obviously, I now know what they are. As you will be aware, this application was made about 7 years ago, and it was approved at that time, and subsequently reapproved when it wasn't actually built just over 3 years, or just under 3 years later. Would it be possible to look at the plans, because you erred in some of the explanations that you brought up? This extension here is exactly the same size as it was originally in the original application. I would hope that the council would be consistent in its application of the rules. I'm not aware of any planning rules that have changed in that respect. And the application today ostensibly is moving a wall just under 1 metre from here to there. That's what we're considering ostensibly. Everything else is the same. So that's what I'm asking the committee to approve. I'm not sure what part of what the petitioner's parts relates to planning. I'm not a planning professional. I wonder if someone would like to tell me which particular bits are relate to planning. But the covenants, the petitioner's property is next door, as she said, and she actually has built on the part that she's claiming. Sorry, not that. My mistake. Sorry, the number 2 on the other side has built exactly the same size of ground floor extension which we are proposing, which is why I actually made the application to extend it to exactly the same size as the house, which looks ostensibly the same as the petitioner rightly pointed out. All the houses are very similar and uniform in nature. The application that we made originally was done with a year of consultation with the council, and we were advised how exactly they would like the design to be. The design was totally different to the design that I first put to the council, and we were told that we were advised to put complete glass over the front, for example, which is, as I said, the council's preference. I'm not quite sure if the conifers have anything to do with this. No, good. I'm not sure if the companies have anything to do with this. No, I didn't think they did. I'm not sure if the 8 cars that I apparently have anything to do with this. I didn't think they did either. The privacy I've already addressed. We have permission, and we'll be building the first floor extension irrespective of the outcome of this meeting. So that's a non-issue. And the only issue to be discussed or to be considered, as I said, is to move that wall just under 1 metre to be consistent with the number 2 that we're speaking about. Sorry, it was my mistake in relation to my neighbour. My neighbour has also assumed part of the garage, which you talked about with my application, assumed part of the garage to potentially have another bedroom. It wasn't part of the infill, my mistake. As I said, I'm not sure. The applicant the petitioner rather has made me out to be some sort of nightmare neighbour, and to be honest, I have had lots of issues with the people in the street, and my wife and myself have chosen to keep ourselves to ourselves and not get involved with any of the nonsense that goes on in the street. We talk to maybe 2 neighbours and just keep ourselves to ourselves, and that's how we've chosen to be. And I'm assure you that I could have a case for slander. What's been said today.
We'll get to the planning if we might.
Yeah, you can appreciate that I'm quite aggrieved at. Well, you won't appreciate, but I am aggrieved at some of the things that have been said today because they're total untruths. As I said, the applicant it's basically just a small movement of a wall, and I'd hope that the committee would see it. And see it sympathetically, because it doesn't make any difference to the elevation. It makes a slight difference.
You have got the time, so I'm going to stop it there.
Okay, thank you.
Do members have any questions? No.
Yes, sure.
Okay, I'm going to simplify this one out considerably for people.
I have great sympathy. Obviously, there are obviously issues between neighbours here. They are not of our concern. Covenants, conifers, value of properties, as planning members all know, are not material planning considerations, nor is the Party Wall Act. So let's just put all those to one side. I would draw members' attention to page 24. The applicant is correct because the refusal reason does focus solely on the ground floor infill extension. So not the first floor, the ground floor infill extension is the only refusal reason on this at the moment. The officer report, and I draw your attention to page 19. Admittedly, the urban design officer is not comfortable, but the officer does remind us that, in fact, the applicant does have a similar planning application which has been approved in respect of the first floor side extension. So we are, in essence, our attention is drawn to that small element at the front. So and therefore I will confer, obviously we can look at the first floor, but bearing in mind if that already benefits from an existing permission for a very similar extension, that is a material planning consideration that you do have to take into account, and you'd have to need strong grounds to go against that. Councillor Ducey, then Councillor Higgins, please.
Me personally, I think this hangs on the point about number 2. If we're going to potentially refuse on the grounds of bulk scale, alterations, and the neighbour has actually done this in the past, I'd like clarification from planning whether or not that's is the case or not.
We'll see what planning knows. We'll ask them to do a bit of research. Thank you for the question. Councillor Higgins.
Councillor Ducey said a similar sort of thing, really. I can't understand. You're asking us to make an application decision on this without photos of the rest of the street scene.
Yeah. Which does seem a bit of an omission.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I just don't understand. How am I supposed to know what number 2 looks like if that's not the case?
We may get some clarification. I've got to be careful. Oh, right, okay, that may help. The head of planning will make a judgment call whether acceptable. Sorry, Councillor Flynn, you indicated.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, I'd like to thank you for clarifying things considerably. I think the 2 submissions we heard were, quite frankly, as clear as mud as far as the members' perspective here. Being in my ward, I do actually have been to this street several times. I think it is worth just saying that these are very distinctive properties. Award-winning they may be, but they are also quite distinctive. And my concern would be around the issue of uniformity. Is what is being proposed here actually going to change the uniformity and set precedents here in this very distinctive road?
At the moment, those are the visuals I've got.
Just, we have to be careful of costs here. I'm just concerned that if number 2 has been done, and I don't even know because I can't see it, if it has been done on a thing, we will lose this on appeal. That is, I'm sure, as mud, you said, is it? But, I just need some clarity on the rest of the street. So,
my honest opinion is that where I think the conservation officer's concern is going is about a kind of loss of uniformity and character, and that does link to the impact on the street scene. And so I am erring towards a view that you don't actually have all the information you'd ideally wish to have. So, we could this is not a big close. We could take photos of all the properties quite easily and give you a much more comprehensive assessment, in effect, of the street scene.
This one did turn on the street scene.
Or members could take a view, because it is you've got the front elevation and you've got and it's been clarified the scale of the front elevation, that you're happy to make a decision without knowing the wider picture.
Councillor Morgan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. May I suggest that we go for a deferral until we have the street scenes available, and also perhaps data concerning number 2?
I think the street scene covers it, if I'm honest. Photos of the street scene would cover it for me.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'll second that. I think we need some more information.
Okay, all those in favour of deferral, please clearly shout. Okay, it's deferred. I now move, Councillor Morgan, your evening is over. Remarkably quick interlude. I could make him say, let's see how long it takes us to do this one. St Helens School, Eastbury Road, Northwood, item 8, please. Officers.
Thank you, Chair. This is a site plan. This application seeks full planning permission for the demolition of an existing building. That's the aerial photo. So that's the wider school complex, and the building to be demolished, and the site of the new building is outlined in red there. That shows the constraints. You can see it's partly in conservation area, and a number of listed buildings, but it's quite a distance from the site. That's the wider school site. That's another view of the wider school site. The building to be demolished is in here. I flick across. That's the proposed footprint of the new building. The proposed placement is a 2-storey specialist music practice and small-scale performance facility, lying within the southwest corner of the school's grounds and falls within the Northwood Frithwood conservation area. And there's some elevations of the new building. You can see it's not practically clear from that drawing, but that elevation there is actually a green wall. So there'll be vegetation growing up that. That's the proposed floor plans. That's a topographical study. There's some cross sections through the proposed building. That's a photo of the building to be removed and replaced by the new one. More photos of various parts of the existing building. So the recommendation is to approve. Thank you.
Views on this one, Councillor Higgins?
I don't really have a problem with this application apart from I'm mindful of, I don't know if I live down that way, so unfortunately I have the pleasure of the traffic and cars turning into St Helens during time. I just think this will, there needs to be a proper plan in place of how this is going to be constructed, hopefully over the summer when the school is closed. Also, I'm concerned about vehicles on that road. It's a very narrow road. Can we have some reassurances from the planning department?
I will look at that. Can I also remind members there is an addendum on this one which does amend the conditions slightly. Imported soil was the bit that was left off. What have we got? I think so. I think the sensible thing, given the site and constraints, to add construction management plan to it. I think that would be we don't normally, but I think there's enough goes on here that would make it worth doing. Anyone got any other issues? Councillor Graham, are you going to move it, or are you about to ask a question?
Well, I was going to say I live very close to the school. I've seen what's gone on over time. It seems a shame to lose such a nice building, but in the scheme of things, it's well hidden and well away from general view, and with a view to modernisation and what's required, I've no objection to it.
Okay, will you second the proposal that we move forward then?
Yes, I'm happy to say.
Thank you. All those in favour, please clearly show. Thank you. That one is approved. And then just a full course to 8. Thank you. Thank you for your time.